I wasn't supposed to stop. It was a Tuesday just after 3. I'd finished a supplier meeting early and decided on a whim to drop by my daughter's place. No calls, no heads up. Just one of those quiet, fatherly impulses. The kind that makes you want to check if the porch light still works, if the grandkids left their bikes on the lawn. But as I turned onto Sycamore Lane, something made me slow down. Her car was there, my wife's silver Lexus parked with practiced confidence by Evan's gate like it belonged there. It should have been in our driveway. She'd told me she had errands across town, doctor's appointment, groceries, a nail touch-up maybe. Nothing that led here. The engine idled beneath me, but my pulse was louder. Something in my gut, something old built into the bones of men who've poured concrete with their hands tightened. I pulled over. Not because I knew what was happening, but because I knew something was. The house was quiet. No dog barking, no music. Just the gentle slap of wind against window panes and the hollow sound of being somewhere you shouldn't be. I walked toward the side yard. Slow steps, soft steps. The kind you take when you're not sure whether you're intruding or about to be intruded upon. The back window was cracked open. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard my wife's voice, calm, rehearsed. Once the old man signs, it's all ours, every last bit. I stood there still as a brick, and just like that, the ground beneath 27 years gave way. If you've ever felt the floor shift beneath something you thought was solid, drop your city below. I'd like to know how far this kind of story travels. I should have walked away right then. But some betrayals don't hit you all at once. They leak in quietly like water behind drywall. You don't notice the damage until the whole thing starts caving in. Her voice floated through the cracked window like perfume from a bottle I never bought. He has no clue we've been tracking his finances. Bank statements, contracts, even the offshore stuff, Evan's got it all backed up. I leaned closer, but not too close. Part of me already understood what I was hearing. The rest of me just needed confirmation. Inside, my wife Nora sat cross-legged on our daughter's couch, twirling a strand of hair the way she used to when pretending to be interested in my business stories. Evan stood by the bookshelf, arms folded like he was prepping for court. He wasn't just her accomplice, he was her strategist. The company's worth at least $8 million, he said, calm as a man reading off grocery prices. Add the cabin, the vineyard lease, your trust payouts. We're looking at close to 15. Nora laughed. Not cruelly, just casually, like someone enjoying a well-earned return. 2 years of pretending to care about drywall margins and crew overtime. He really thinks I still love him. That line landed harder than I care to admit, because until that moment I'd never questioned it. Until that moment I still did. I fumbled for my phone, hit record. My fingers were shaking, not from rage, not yet, but from the quiet collapse of certainty. They weren't just betraying me, they were erasing me, piece by piece, ledger by ledger. And the worst part, they didn't think I'd notice. By the time I walked back to the front, I had already rehearsed my smile. The kind that says everything's fine, the kind you wear at funerals when you're expected to keep it together. The front door creaked open before I knocked. Nora stepped out first, lipstick, perfect hair pinned in that casual way she pretends is effortless. She blinked when she saw me, then did something she hadn't done in years. She lied badly. George, what a surprise. What are you doing here? I gave her the smile, the one I'd just stitched together on my walk around the house. Had a meeting near the city line. Figured I'd stop in, say hi to Emily. From inside, Evan appeared, tie loosened shirt sleeves, rolled the picture of polite concern. Emily's not here, Nora said quickly. She ran out to grab something. Ah, I nodded slow. Funny, she said she was at work all day. The silence between us stretched just long enough to sting. We were just going over some legal stuff. Evan jumped in. For a client. Nothing major. I tilted my head like I was buying it even as I watched the flicker in his eyes. He wasn't sure how much I knew, and that uncertainty, it was starting to sweat out of him. You always did love helping people, Nora, I said with the kind of softness that cuts deeper than shouting. Then I glanced down at my phone in my hand. Made sure they saw it. Didn't say a word about it. I just smiled again. Because sometimes the best move is letting them wonder what game they're playing. I didn't turn on the lights when I came home. Some houses speak louder in the dark. The foyer greeted me with the usual creaks. That same loose floorboard she always said we'd fix but never did. The lemon scent of the wood polish still lingered, clinging to corners like forgotten vows. And there it was, our wedding photo. Me in that rented tux stiff as drywall. Nora glowing in ivory satin, her smile full of the future. I used to love that photo. Now it looked like a postcard from a country I never actually visited. 25 years, birthdays, mortgage payments, ski trips that turned into spa weekends because she didn't like the cold, the ugly recliner she made me move to the garage, the dinners we never really ate together just happened to sit beside each other while the TV filled in the silence. But I remember when it felt real, our first house. I'd spent nights installing cabinets while she painted nursery walls. She hummed to the radio barefoot on a tarp covered in blue splatters. Back then she touched my arm when she spoke. Back then I thought I was building something permanent. Maybe I was, but somewhere along the way permanence turned into performance. She still kissed me goodnight, still signed cards with all my love, still laughed at my old jokes like she hadn't heard them 100 times. And I kept showing up. I kept working, keep believing. But now I see it. I wasn't in a marriage. I was in a long, slow audition, and she'd stopped clapping years ago. The next morning I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my own books. Not the daily invoices or contractor schedules my assistant managed, but the deeper stuff. The accounts, the valuations, the folders Nora always said bored her to tears. Turns out she'd been very interested. Passwords I thought were private had been reset recently. Transaction histories exported at odd hours. Joint accounts quietly renamed. The trust I'd set up for Emily suddenly accessed, reviewed, and flagged by someone who shouldn't have known it existed. Every trail led back to her, or to Evan. They weren't just planning a divorce, they were executing a financial siege. I traced it all: payments, routed properties, appraised, legal memos drafted. The precision was almost impressive. 2 years of concerned questions about the business, 2 years of nodding while I explained debt structures and tax shelters. She hadn't been bored, she'd been studying. But what they didn't know was that I'd never put all my eggs in one basket. There were protections, systems I'd built long before I ever met Nora. Old habits from a time when I didn't have anyone to trust. A few offshore holdings, some irrevocable trusts, quiet moves made not out of secrecy but survival. Back then I called it prudence. Today I call it providence. Because while they were documenting the fortress I'd built, they missed the vault underneath it. They saw the house, the cars, the business name on the truck doors, but they never saw the blueprint, and I was the one who drew it. It took less than 72 hours to change everything. I didn't scream, didn't confront, didn't throw anything across the room like some betrayed husband on a daytime courtroom show. Instead, I made phone calls. The first was to Helen Carmichael, my estate lawyer for over a decade. The second was to Tom Sinclair, VP at the regional bank where all our joint accounts lived. The third, quietest but most crucial, was to my accountant, a woman who once helped me navigate a near audit in 2008 and hadn't missed a decimal since. By Friday afternoon, the machinery was in motion. Every shared account was flagged. Every automatic transfer paused. Access required dual verification in person with photo ID and signature matching. The emergency credit line was suspended pending investigation of irregular marital activity. That's the language they use when a storm is brewing behind closed doors. It's perfectly legal, by the way. Asset protection during a contested dissolution, standard procedure. But for Nora, it would feel like a trapdoor opening beneath her stilettos. Let them wonder why the groceries bounced, why her card declined at brunch, why Evan's rent check got returned with a red stamp that read, "Account frozen." Let them scramble. Because while they were busy drawing up their war map, they forgot to check if the castle still belonged to the king. And I was done playing politely. They'd started a chess match. But I'd been pouring concrete on battlefields long before they learned how to bluff. Now it was my move, and I wasn't blinking. The first alert hit at 12:07 p.m. declined transaction at a luxury boutique downtown. Nora had tried to buy a cashmere coat. The second came 5 minutes later, spa appointment cancelled mid-session due to payment failure. By 12:30 I could almost hear the panic behind her perfectly glossed lips. Then came the call. "George, something's wrong with the accounts. My card was declined twice. Can you check with the bank?" Her voice was all confusion and careful innocence. The kind she used when the plumber bill was too high or the dinner reservations got lost. "Must be a technical error," I said, already looking at the log on my laptop. "I'll call Tom later this afternoon." I didn't. At 2:18 p.m, Evan tried to log into the shared business access. 3 failed password attempts, then another alert attempted transfer from a trust fund they hadn't realized was no longer accessible. By 4 Algerode, his paralegal called the bank citing urgent legal permissions. Denied. At 5:12, my phone buzzed again, Margaret, this time via text. George, I don't know what's going on, but this is embarrassing. I couldn't even pay for lunch. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I didn't know how to respond, but because I knew I didn't need to. For 25 years, I'd carried the burden of their comfort, quietly, reliably. Now they could carry the silence. It fits heavier than they thought. Emily called the next morning. Her voice had that calm, measured cadence she uses with difficult clients, the kind where every word is weighed before it's spoken. Dad, is everything okay between you and Mum? I paused, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wasn't sure how much of the truth she was ready to hold. Why do you ask? She's been off, asking odd questions, about assets, about power dynamics in marriage, and she said something about you being financially controlling. There it was, the opening move. Nora had made her play, but she underestimated the one person in the family trained to see through narratives. Emily isn't just my daughter. She's a licensed psychologist, built her own practice, taught seminars on emotional abuse. She doesn't buy stories, she dissects them. And what do you think? I asked gently. There was a pause. I think Mum's trying to build something, a case, a version of events where she's the trapped party, but it doesn't match what I've seen growing up. Another pause. She asked me to assess you, Dad, professionally. That landed heavier than any court summons could have. And what did you say? That I couldn't ethically evaluate someone I hadn't formally treated, and that I wasn't willing to weaponize my degree to serve someone else's strategy? I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. At that moment, I didn't care about accounts or trusts or frozen credit cards. All I saw was the little girl who used to bring me lemonade while I laid tile on the back porch, and the woman she'd become, unshakable, principled, and nobody's pawn. By Sunday evening, the house was quieter than usual. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind that follows a storm warning where everything holds its breath, waiting for what's next. Emily had come by earlier that day. She didn't stay long. Just long enough to look me in the eye and say, I've spoken to a divorce attorney. I'm leaving Evan. She didn't cry. Neither did I. Some truths are too clean to hurt right away. Instead, she reached into her bag, pulled out a folder neatly labeled "Every document tabbed." And if you need me to testify, I will, but only for the truth, not for sides. That's when I knew the war they started was already turning against them, because they'd forgotten something crucial: power built on lies collapses when even one person refuses to play along. I spent the rest of that evening doing what I do best, planning. Emails were drafted to my legal team, copies of the audio recordings backed up in 4 separate drives. I started compiling timelines, cross-referencing transactions with Nora's book club nights and Evan's supposed client meetings. No anger, just facts, just patterns. That's the thing about betrayal. If you let it, it can rot you from the inside. But if you name it, trace it, hold it to the light, it becomes evidence. And evidence in the right hands is power. They wanted to bleed me quietly, but I was never the man who went down without building an exit, and I was just getting started. Courtroom 2B smelled like varnished wood and waiting. Judge Halbrook was known for his short temper and long memory, a man who'd seen enough domestic drama to spot a lie from across state lines. Nora sat at the petitioner's table, dressed in charcoal grey and feigned fragility. Her lawyer, polished and ready, began weaving the story they'd prepared. Mrs. Hanley has endured months of financial coercion, emotional manipulation, and isolation from marital assets. I watched her speak about our marriage like it was a crime scene. He cut off her access to basic funds, monitored her spending, created a climate of fear. It was almost impressive. The narrative was sharp rehearsed, delivered with the kind of cadence you only learn from someone like Evan. And then it was our turn. My attorney, Mr. Parks, a man who speaks softly but carries receipts, stood without drama. Your Honour, we submit into evidence a 43-minute audio recording between Mrs. Hanley and Mr. Evan Whitaker, her son-in-law. Click. The courtroom speakers hummed, and then my wife's voice filled the room. He actually thinks I still love him. Her laugh followed, hollow and sharp. Once the old man signs the paperwork, everything's ours. The gallery shifted. Even the judge leaned back slightly. By the 12-minute mark, Nora wasn't blinking. By minute 30, her lawyer had gone silent. And by the end, the mask had fallen completely. "Do you have a response?" the judge asked. Nora opened her mouth. I closed it. Looked around like she'd misplaced her lines. Her lawyer requested to withdraw. The petition was dismissed. With prejudice. I didn't smile. Some truths are too heavy for celebration. But I did breathe. For the first time in weeks, I breathed. 2 weeks after the hearing, Nora moved out. No announcement, no parting words. Just a moving truck on a Thursday morning and a neighbor's polite text, "I think your ex-wife's leaving." The divorce was finalized in less than a month. No alimony, no stake in the company. Just a modest settlement carefully outlined in the prenuptial agreement she once called a formality. Turns out formalities matter, especially when your betrayal is time-stamped and backed up in 3 formats. Evan's law license didn't survive the year. The bar's ethics committee dug deeper than I expected. Turns out embezzling client funds while plotting to bankrupt your wife's father isn't a great career move. Last I heard, he was working at a legal processing firm in Ohio. No plaque on the door, no courtroom swagger. As for Emily, she rebuilt. She opened a private therapy practice with a focus on psychological boundary repair. Her first workshop, when manipulation wears a familiar face. I was her test case, she said. Her proof that survival doesn't always come loud, it often comes steady. And me, I go home now to a quieter house. No artificial perfume, no performative small talk over dinner, just wood floors that creak honestly, rain on the roof that doesn't apologize, and space honest earned space to be a man without performance. I still make coffee for 2. It's a habit. But I don't wait for anyone to drink the second cup. Some mornings I just let it sit, let it cool. Not as a symbol of loneliness, but as proof that I can finally let things go. They say betrayal feels like a knife in the back, but in my experience it's quieter than that. It sounds like a familiar laugh in the wrong room. It looks like your wife's car parked where it shouldn't be. It feels like reaching for a hand you once trusted only to find it already holding someone else's. But here's what no one tells you. Sometimes the worst day of your life is just the day the curtain finally lifts, and you stop mistaking comfort for connection. You stop confusing history for loyalty. You stop giving your best to people who treat your love like a retirement plan. Nora didn't destroy me. She revealed me. She pulled back the layers I'd wrapped around myself: husband, provider, builder, protector, and underneath I found something I hadn't seen in years. A man, still standing, still capable of rebuilding not just homes, but a life worth coming home to. The truth is, I don't hate her. I don't wish her pain, but I do thank her. Because had she not tried to burn it all down, I might have never learned that I didn't need the applause to be whole. Now I build for peace. I woke up on purpose. I drink my coffee hot and alone on a porch I designed myself. And for the first time in a long, long while, I know the difference between love and performance. If this story found you at the right time, tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far honesty travels.